What is up, guys, and welcome back to OWL by the Numbers, your one-stop spot for all things Fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode number 20, we'll be breaking down the latest happenings in the Overwatch League. I'll also talk about, what's been going on kind of like behind the scenes with some of the teams as well in our post-game discussion. Get you primed for your unlimited drafts for Stage 3, week number 3, and of course, break down some of this week's marquee matches. And we got some pretty big matches this week, which have some pretty big implications for the play-in tournament towards the end of the season. But before we can jump into the agenda for tonight and introduce you to my co-host, let me just take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So as you can tell, we do have a full house tonight. My sinuses are in check. Edinar is back to co-hosting. We got everything set up alright, so we are good to go. And unfortunately, guys, fantasy-wise, we ran into a couple of issues again this week, which we'll definitely be touching up on. And it's kind of gotten to the point now where High Noon Fantasy is looking at implementing their fix, so I know they have a survey out, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. So, I know it was a disgruntling week for all of us, just due to some of the API issues, so I feel like it's best to just talk about how everyone's pick'ems went here in the prior week. So, kind of like going around, Ed, let's start with you. How did you fare this week in the pick'ems, knowing that we had some pretty, monumental upsets?
I want to say I didn't do that good. Just the only reason I can't say is because I tried to go back and look at my previous picks, and they're not there.
Oof.
So I don't know what I picked last week. I mean, I got the obvious ones wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone had the Outlaws losing to the Shock.
Yeah, it was like 1%.
You know, I think I picked the Rain to win against Paris, so I got that wrong. But I mean, looking in the leagues as far as the leaderboards, it seems like I went up. So I think a lot of people got a lot wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it was just a rough week for a lot of people, but I can't say for certain. Just saying.
Right on. Yeah, I know, like, this week, I actually did pretty good. I actually made up some ground on quite a few of the overall pick'em leagues. The two that I got wrong were obviously the Outlaws versus the Shock game. I was not one of the 1% that picked Houston, but I did tip Houston in their other game, which was another one that some people still got wrong, even though it was more like a 40-60 split. The other game that I got wrong was the Dallas Fuel game when they were going up against the Train Dew Hunters. That one kind of kept flipping back and forth. And I backed the Raw and Texas team in that one, apparently, and that was the other mark I got. But really, across the board, at least with the upsets, I kind of had a gut check in regards to, like, the recent performances. So a lot of the coin toss ones, I was just going with how they did recently, and it did pay off fairly well across the board. So it was a pretty good week across the board for me.
Yeah, and just looking at, like, the upsets from the week, the only real upsets came on the first day.
Mm-hmm.
Which was the Outlaws. And then I guess if you want to call the Chengdu Hunters beating the Fuel an upset. But, like, the rest of the week was kind of pretty straightforward, you know, as far as pick'em. So I'm pretty sure I got all those right. So, yeah, it looks like I probably got 2 or 3 wrong.
The first day, though, was like super weird, wasn't it?
Well, it was the first match was Outlaw Shock. Super weird. The next one was Shanghai beat Atlanta, which I think was closer to like a 50-50 split on the pick'ems. And then it was Chengdu versus the Fuel, and then Titans versus the Spark.
Yeah, I know the Fuel in that one were favored, at least in the pick rates.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only other one would be Paris versus Atlanta would be like an upset.
Is it?
I think it's what the closest you could get to it being an upset, as far as like one that might have been.
But here's the problem: Paris didn't play Atlanta.
Oh, and it's a bigger upset than that. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought all of them were
They
upset.
didn't even play.
Man,
Like-
forget everything I just said.
If Spark had beat Vancouver, I would have thought it would have been the biggest upset day in Al
Oh
history.
yeah,
You know,
100%. But the Spark put up a fight against the Titans. At least we can
They
say
did.
that. They didn't look trashed here. So, yay, go Pink.
Absolutely. So, of course, one of the most notable things that happened during that day one of Stage 3, week number 2, was that Houston Outlaws versus the San Francisco Shock game. Now, it is worth noting that so far, the Shock have kind of stumbled at the start of Stage 3, and Houston actually took that series in 5 maps. And it was really a thriller of a series, probably one of the bigger upsets that we have seen in the Overwatch League. And, I know there's been a lot of back and forth about where Ed and I rank Houston. And, if you look at their schedule, it's looking pretty good this stage, so we'll see how much movement they can make when it comes to the overall season stand-ins, to see if they can, move up a couple of spots or jump right back into the thick of things for that play-in tournament. But Ramsey's looking back, what do you feel like has been kind of like the catalyst behind the Outlaws starting to get back to form, so to speak?
Well, we even heard it. Avast had Flame come on stream earlier where they were talking about them just deciding to run DPS at this point just because they were getting rolled in scrims against Shanghai, who were playing DPS into their goats. Now, whether or not that's just because Houston's goats is trash and couldn't even beat normal goats if it tried is up for debate. But it really seems like they really are just they're finally leaning into the heroes that they really enjoy playing and that they're actually good at. We get to see a lot more Jake on the Pharah. We see some occasional Linkser on the Widow. It hasn't really done like gangbusters as like it used to, but a lot more of those two. We even saw some Doomfist from those guys, but the main thing that's been pushing them has just been Houston really relying, or at least usually going with the Sombra Goats comp, where they decided to just run Sombra, I think, almost all of their Goats time instead of trying to force a standard 3-3 with a D.Va, Zarya, Ryan.
Yeah, it's like that asshole named Monty was actually right about something and then gets shit for being right. It's weird.
There's a way you go about that, though. I mean, Monty did get he was vindicated, but he was justified, but also like there's a way
It's
to
like
you're right
everything
without
he
being.
said for them to do was correct.
I don't think there's ever a way you can be like, ha ha, I was right, without getting shit. And he doesn't care if he gets shit. Like, he actually enjoys the shit out of it when he realizes that he has upset you and that you can't control your emotions. And so every time you write something mean to Monty, you're just like empowering him.
Well, and my favorite thing, like speaking of not being able to control your emotions, is when we know that Super, the main tank from the San Francisco Shock, is like the world's biggest Sombra hater of all time. To where like it's part of his reputation now that people will make fun of him for how triggered he gets by Sombra. So we got to see, I think San Francisco really just decided they were going to be able to just push through even with the Sombra, that they're a cohesive enough team that they were going to make it work. And we saw Dante was getting a lot of really clutch hacks. He was building up his EMP really, really fast.
And
Houston was actually... You go.
Sorry. Almost every EMP that he did, he would hit the support that had ultimate, which I thought was whoever was ult counting was doing a hell of a job too.
They seemed a lot more in sync with their Sombra, because I remember them playing Sombra against other teams earlier this season where it would just look bad. Like Dante would just get picked first out of like, all right, like they're gonna set up the fight with this hack, and then like, oh, Dante's dead like a minute before everybody else even gets there. Like, okay, like redo it, like get back in. The other thing I want to make sure I mention, which the casters mentioned to Ed, so you can't get mad at me for it. Rocket survived a lot more than he usually has.
On what character?
He's a lot better
Zen.
on, but he is just a lot better on Anna, and he's been playing a lot of her.
His on is a lot better. But even when he was on Zen, he was surviving more fights. He got a couple more picks, but he was able to hold the trans out and actually bring it when it was needed instead of just dying immediately or transing way too early and then losing the fight.
Yeah, the whole team looks like they're having fun again, which They did not look like they were having fun at all before. And I know winning does that, but the mentality, just that game against New York just lit a fire. And I mean, that is powerful. And there's no way to quantify it, there's no stat for it, but just mentality is really important.
Now, here's the question. Was San Francisco... Did they really give two craps about playing the Outlaws? Like, do you think they were looking past them?
Yes, I think it's a combination of Houston playing up and San Francisco playing down.
Yeah, because if you're a coach and you're like, okay, we're gonna go up against the Outlaws, who haven't won a match in 9 games, and we also play Seoul in the same week. Who are we gonna concentrate on more? Probably Seoul. From a coach's perspective, that's probably the tougher one. So they probably just overlooked them.
I think on top of it too, I think about probably the 5th time Super got EMP destroyed, he was just spent at that point. Like playing
hands off the keyboards.
From that point on, just like mad.
Yeah, and it's not only that, but it does feel like so far in Stage 3, I mean, the Shock just haven't looked like one of the top 2 teams right now, and it's kind of left us questioning, well, like, what their mentality is, like, where they are sitting at least in the rankings, because I know for a while now, we were feeling like the Shock were the best team in the league, despite, Titans still being undefeated currently in, the stages so far outside of those Stage 2 finals, so knowing that the Shock have kind of been slipping and dropping more maps, so where do you guys feel like that has the Shock at right now? Because they're still one of the best teams in the league, but it's getting harder to argue that the Shock are the top team when Sombra has basically come into this stage and been, for lack of a better term, like they're undoing at this point.
And the other team above them in the rankings is New York, who have been pretty much exclusively running Sombra Goats with SBB.
Above them in the rankings because they're in the Atlantic and the Pacific. Overall, New York is still behind San Francisco. But right now, San Francisco would be the 3 seed because 1st and 2nd go to the winner of Atlantic and
New York's
Pacific.
only lost twice. The whole kit and caboodle. 15-2. Shock's 13-4.
Oh, I'm looking. Oh, that was before this week. Sorry.
Yeah, the only team to beat New York did it twice, and that was ATL.
Yeah. I don't know. I still think the Shock are above New York.
I think
personally.
I would say so. The only thing that would give me any cause for concern is San Francisco has to have some sort of comeback for Sombra Goats. Is my only concern. I think that when they've played against Vancouver hasn't really run it. I think far and away, we're all agreeing here, Vancouver is probably number 1 just because they're still the most collected, put together. Like, they're the most consistent every single week powerhouse.
Yeah,
San Francisco's still number 2 to me, but if they continue to, who else are they playing this week? Because I don't know if they're going to play anybody who runs a clean Sombra Goats. But
let me just see here real quick. San Francisco, they played Boston and Florida.
So that's no one to really worry about.
No.
The problem is that, like, we could put them as number 2, but we aren't going to have something that actually, like, tests their mettle until probably stage playoffs, if anything.
Yeah, so. but I think you hit it on the point. If they don't figure out how to combat a good Sombra Goats, New York's going to be better.
And they got to figure out something about Super getting tilted. We knew it used to be Sinatra as far as, like, the guy who get angry and kind of tilt the whole thing. But it does seem very obvious that when Super just gets out of his own head, the entire team starts to sink a little bit.
Yeah, did you guys see the clip that was from a Vast stream that had Surefour and Super? And
If your Samba was to go versus ours man-to-man.
It was so good.
I didn't see that.
Now,
holy good.
Let's just go back to this, though. They are 3 games removed from winning the stage playoffs, and they've lost 1 game. Slight overreaction to 1 loss.
If it was anybody but Houston, we'd be thinking differently.
I mean, look at the way New York, like you said, lost to Atlanta twice. Like, where people, like, throwing them under the bus after one loss.
Yeah,
Two losses, yes.
they called them.
But was New
S
York
tier was the 2 top teams, and then there was no A, and then B was New York, and then below New York was all C or something like
but
that.
was
That's
New
what
York
everybody was saying.
But was New York coming off of a stage playoff victory? Like stage championship. Without losing.
No.
Like I think it's a little bit everyone kind of wants to it's one of those things where you look at any other sport where the team that's on top falters a little and everyone like the sky is falling type
I don't
of
think
situation.
that's what it is. I think we're seeing a weakness where we did not see a weakness before.
Right.
Well, and I think there's also something to be said. I don't know how much like familiarness you guys have, or familiarity. I'm sorry, you guys have like if you've played like high school sports before, but I know when I played during my high school years, there was certain times where you had a big game coming up a couple of weeks, and that's gonna be like your big hard game you have to work for, and you grind and you push and you get like you psych yourself up and you expend everything for that one game, and then you like lose the magic. Like it's hard to really recapture like that winning, I guess that commanding winning presence again. And I wonder with San Francisco, I don't think it's anything to panic about, but when they were going, they're building this perfect stage and they're building momentum. They beat Vancouver, and then they kind of have to get their eye back on the ball, and it's a little hard to like really lock into that form again.
Yeah, and plus they dropped the map immediately too.
Mm-hmm.
Even after that point. So yeah, I will say like right now, like I feel like it's probably a little too early to worry too much about the Shock. But with the emergence of Sombra and more teams relying on running Sombra Goats or just Sombra in their DPS compositions, basically, like, the Shock don't really have that many matches upcoming where they are going to go up against a notable Sombra, so that does leave you a reason to be concerned come stage. Yeah, I mean, Boston is probably going to run RCK on the Sombra, but Boston is kind of going through their own issues right now as well, so it's kind of hard to quantify how much of a challenge Boston is going to be for San Francisco, even with, you know, some recent issues on both sides of the fence. But it's just been another one of those weeks, at least with the stats. I know the API woes have kind of continued and bled into another week.
I'm still owed a win over Ed from a week and a half ago. I'm still owed a win.
I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Ramses is owed a win over me from 2 weeks ago. Plain and simple.
Speaking of owing it,
that's not because of the API.
Well, and speaking of owing anybody anything, our bet, Bob and Ed's bet from last week, did we really like quantify how much goats is 20% goats from the Houston match?
I'm pretty sure I won because, like, Sombra Goats isn't goats, you know what I mean?
Okay. Wait, you just called it Sombra Goats.
Well, Ed was also automatically
goats.
Ed automatically at least lost the bet because Houston won. So that was like, right?
No. That was only step one.
Vanilla chocolate is not chocolate. It contains chocolate, but it's not chocolate.
But if I said you couldn't have chocolate ice cream, and you're like, well, I'm gonna get vanilla chocolate, you still had chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, I guess semantics.
I will buy. What is it? The fuel skin? Yeah, I will buy the fuel skin.
Well, that is settled.
I will repay my bets.
Awesome.
Totem, get us back on track.
All right. So again, like we were dealing with some broken API issues, and of course that did mean that we were missing maps on a couple of occasions. I know the Shock in particular, who have kind of been a recurring theme for the broken API, posted some really bad scores, and I know like even the Outlaws, you know, because I did face the Shock this past week, were also impacted by that as well. So if you guys have been on the High Noon Fantasy Discord, you've probably seen the update. Like, basically, the situation is, you know, Soul Drink is not able to retrieve the data, and the data hasn't been added yet by Blizzard. Now, this has happened a couple of times, and we've yet to see it kind of get patched and fixed by Blizzard at this point. So basically, what Matt did is he sent out a survey earlier, I want to say it was either today or last night, in regards to the API issues, and how they're looking at tackling the issue in the future when it does happen, and it will happen just based on what the track record has been here lately. So basically, Matt has given us 3 options in this survey, which you can fill out. We'll probably have a link to it in the show notes. So the 3 options are you can just leave the broken API as is, meaning, you're not going to get the extra points that you are missing, and that's going to make things really wonky at times because you're never going to know when it's going to happen and how much it's going to impact you, because we've kind of seen that to varying degrees. Because I know, like, for me, Unlimited this week, I was completely screwed with the API issues, outside of something with Boston, which we'll get into later. So the other options are they're looking at averaging the player score from a stage, and they would use that score when the API is broken from this point on. Averaging out is something that we've been talking about for a while. And then the other one, it's kind of similar. He says that the other option is to average a player score from a stage and use that score when the API is broken to apply it to all matches retroactively and in the future. So, like, that would be a fix for not only the matches that it's happened in the past, but also when that issue arises again. So, of course, with all of this, we don't know what the solution is going to be yet in regards to the fix. Obviously, it's left us pretty frustrated with the overall fantasy experience, especially when we're having to podcast about it, week in and week out. But High Noon is looking for additional feedback in regards to the API issues or just other matters with the way that they are running fantasy. So be sure to check out the survey when you guys can. So just kind of looking at it right now, which direction do you guys want them to kind of move in regards to the API issues that we have been getting time and time again?
Well, they're all bad, right? I mean, they're all bad options because Blizzard has put us in a precarious position. And I don't know, if I had to choose one, I would say, God, it's really, like, I don't think the top one's the way to do it. I think you would do that maybe in, like, I don't know, if money was involved or something, and that was just, but, like, I mean, I don't know. I think probably the third option is probably the best because people did spend time working on the rosters that didn't get scored on. So I don't think it's bad to like retrace steps and give the proper person the win. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I think they're all kind of bad.
I have a hard time with it. I agree with you that as far as averaging a person's like scores from the stage and doing it retroactively, just because it's very like we're getting to the point now where it seems like there are just certain teams that you can't even play as much. Like Ed, you're a Sinatra owner, and how many games have you specifically been hurt by this? At least 3.
I've specifically lost 2 matches because of it, and I've been hurt by it. This is our 4th map where the API's broke.
Yeah, and when
overall,
you go in and you put in work to set these rosters, you look up matchups, you look at scores the week before, like it really hurts when you just get screwed for no reason, So I think you might bring some people back to the format if you did do the retroactive thing.
Well, and even then, like, I know Ed's heard me gripe about this, and I said it at the top of the show. I've had the issue on multiple times where, like, it'll show that I won the match. Like, I won the match.
Yeah.
And then, like, nope, there's a loss in my loss column.
Yeah, now, I've seen that since the beginning, though.
That is not an API issue. That's a bug with highnoon.gg that Matt is very aware of. And that's why if you go in now and you try and look at previous matchups, it's closed. So he's working on it right now. If you saw earlier this week, he actually had it at least what he thought was fixed, where you could go in and it would show you what your previous score was, because obviously you change your lineup from week to week. It would show
what your current players would have scored that last week.
Yeah, yes. that's how I understood
but
it.
Also, in parentheses, is what you actually scored that week. So you would have two scores. What your roster
didn't
that's
realize.
currently set would have scored that week, which is obviously wrong. But then in parentheses, what you actually scored at each position that week. Not who scored it, but like what the points were. And that
slot.
would be in that slot. So you could actually go back and see what the score was, which you couldn't before. And then all this API stuff happened and all sorts of, so we just closed it, made it invisible for us to see. Yeah, I don't think they should go back retroactively fix it, because what's in the past, it's in the past.
But I'm owed to win, Ednar. I'm owed to win.
That's not an API issue, though. Like,
No,
there's difference between going back and, because if that's the case, then I'm owed a couple wins myself just from the API.
Oh, and some of those are over me, so I shouldn't be talking.
Yes.
But
So I think from here on out, we should correct it that way. I don't think you go back and change it, because that's just going to piss more people off.
When I think just having it from a going forward perspective, I think it's better just to change it going forward, in that I think you could see a lot of leagues where if it turns out that, like, I thought I won legitimately, and then there is like a different issue that came out, it would completely, I don't know, that was on the other topic. With like changing the APIs, I think it also would change as far as what the player economy is, or how the player economy would be, because there are just certain players that maybe they had a really bad week this week, but we know they have such a higher, like, they have such a high previous performance that it might be worth it just to still start them.
Yep.
Yeah, if just only like with the all access pass, or even with the replay viewer, we could just view stats that way, and then they could use it as a backup for when the API does break. But unfortunately, we don't have that option, which would be the easiest fix when the API does break, since all of those stats are done in real time. So it's just kind of left us. Ideally, like, we wouldn't have to worry about this at all, but it's been happening pretty frequently as of late, so unfortunately that's not a direction that we can take moving forward, since those stats aren't readily available after the matches end.
Yeah, like, and we're making all these excuses, being like, hey, High Noon, GG, like, you know, this would be nice. The API's not working, but the root of the issue is Blizzard just doesn't fix it.
Yeah,
Like,
hopefully the new commissioner realizes how important possible fantasy could be in the future and gets on this, because Nate realized it, but hopefully
Pete's all about that commercialization of esports, so.
Well, and like, I was talking to Fowl, the guy who does the day-to-day league, and he was talking about how it is technically possible to pull from the replay viewer, but it's tricky, because you're essentially, he didn't say this, but for those non-tech geeks, you're essentially hacking it and like pulling the information, the data yourself from it.
I will say one positive note I just saw: we can finally like apply all for our unlimited leagues.
Unlimited, yep.
Yeah, I was telling Ed that earlier.
So that's a nice plus. I just want to make sure I got that in there before.
Yeah, he's slowly working on the quality of life changes in High Noon, and this has been a rough year, and I will even say this: it's still better than Winston's lab. And I fully, like, he will have a lot of time in the off season to get all the quality of life changes that he needs to get in there, and because I will be pestering him about him, and we all know how annoying I can get, but you know, he'll have a long time to work this all out. It was just like, it's a rough. Consider this like season 1 of competitive in Overwatch. Remember the shit show that was? That was horrible.
I mean, hey, today was the shit show. Like, what are you going on about?
It was bad.
Wait, season 1 of like regular competitive?
Yeah, regular competitive. Remember how shit show that was?
Yeah, dude, I had 23 hours in that season with freaking Junkrat.
And nobody knows.
It was my most played character, and it was horrible. He was a bad character then, like really bad.
It was brutal. That's what I'm considering this, and then it got better after that. So that's what I'm expecting from High Noon in all aspects. But this API shit's got to stop. I'm sorry. Like, it's bad. It makes fantasy Overwatch almost unplayable at times.
Right.
And it's out of all of our control.
Pretty much. So with that being said, of course, we're still going to be filling out our unlimited drafts for the week. Hopefully, I won't have, 2/3 of the points I normally get this week, like I did this prior week, which really affected me in pretty much all of my leagues, because I was, I was top 2, top 5 in all of them, and now I'm... I know in one league I dropped from, 2nd to, 7th because of last week.
Yeah, and the highnoon.gg unlimited. You were in 2nd place, and you dropped to 7th this week.
So I got some making up to do.
I was in 7th or 8th, and I'm at 2nd now, and I don't know how.
Well,
I legit don't know how.
As we go into Unlimited, I think it brings, I think it's a fair question. How confident are you starting Shock players at this point?
I will tell you I'm not, and I do not have any Shock starters this week.
Nope.
Because I've still, it's really hard to turn down starting Sinatra. But it's, I agree, you have to be confident you're going to get every single point you're entitled to. And it just seems to happen with Shock, and then also Boston to a decent amount as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the second time this has happened to Boston. It's more been Shock, but second time with Boston.
Here's how I look at it though, it's just like in regular fantasy. You draft that injury prone player, and you don't know when you start them what they're gonna do. Because there's a 50-50 shot they're going to get injured and you're going to lose out points. That's how I take the Shock players. You are going to start them, and if they play the whole game, you're going to get the points out of them. But don't expect the full points all the time. And that's and in Unlimited, that's just unacceptable. You can get away with it in Standard. You cannot get away with it in Unlimited.
Right. So, with that being said, and taking a look at this current lineup, who do you have starting for your Unlimited lineups this week?
All right. So, I have I'm assuming I have a much different Unlimited than any of you.
Okay.
Nobody's got one even close to mine.
Well, Bob, that's normal.
I'm still putting mine together. So.
Mine's Mimi.
Bob's is I got Unco. I don't know. You guys fill out the rest. So in the tank positions, I went with Fury and Note.
Okay.
In the healers or support, I went Shaz and Bebe. In the offense, I went Suominsu, and I went Danye.
Danye put up good points last week.
Yeah. And in my captain spot, I put Senior Jae Hong. Who was the number 1 fantasy point getter last week?
Yeah, okay, so Ed, you remember when I remember DMing you and I was I was going to start Aim God and Jahan. And I was I actually switched out Jahan last week because I for sure thought that Sol was gonna do something screwy, and then Jahan plays the entire week, and I was so mad. And then of course Aim God didn't even play. So that bit me in the ass.
And looking at the schedule this week, there aren't a lot of great matchups.
Yeah, there's a lot of one hard game, one easy game for a lot of the teams that play twice.
Yeah, or you have New York versus the Spitfire this week.
That's my pick.
Well, the problem is
I'm literally taking half of the Spitfire, half of New York, taking Nene and freaking Prophet, taking Jonak and Bedosian, and taking Mono and Gesture.
So you're basically really
hoping it's going to be a 5-map game.
He didn't even take the off takes.
Because I can't take the off take for New York.
But you do realize, 2 weeks ago, New York 4-0'd Spitfire in a steamroll, right?
That and the
I know, but I think they're going to come back with their hair on fire. We know that London, plays good some days, plays bad some days.
But they haven't been playing Sombra. They haven't been playing Sombra, and that's what worries me in that particular match, at least for the Spitfire.
Yeah, they do have guard. They could put it and just match Sombra for Sombra.
We just haven't seen that yet, at least with the current setup in Stage 3.
So we know Bob's crazy lineup. Ramsey's, or no, you're still. I can
I'm
see
ready.
right now.
I have
like,
mine.
Trying to read your screen.
See, I
And-
have
I got
mine,
Raucus. I got Jay.
Be like, I
It
want
only-
I got
Dante.
Lixer. Dante.
Um,
Dante too.
Life is
So-
like a box of chocolates.
Never know what you're gonna get.
So I actually have my line put together. I just always have to hear Ed's just to see how much I want to steal from it. That's why every time we do this segment, I'm like, let some, as long as Ed can go first, so I can steal like a bit of his lineup.
So
Usually
that's the secret.
I'm
We just have
fine 'cause
Ramsey
nobody
start.
picks me first, and then
Well,
Ed
we,
picks
no,
me
no, no,
first.
no, no, no. I started with you first last week, and you listed two
Yeah,
people.
it was the
and
first
you
time
said,
I've
go on.
started with. Yeah, it was the first time I'd been started with. I was like, oh shit, I haven't even looked. I usually look. when you guys
Ramses,
are
do you have
talking.
your hand raised? This is a
Oh, no.
podcast.
No, so what it is, I'm sitting next to like a dresser, and I'm like holding the handle. It's like the oh shit handle in your car that you hold like up here. It's just comfortable to have my arm up here. No, so my lineup is I'm just gonna go from captain down. I have Shaz as my team captain.
Stolen.
Yeah, that's I stole 3 players. Shaz is my team captain.
Crap, I didn't pick a captain.
I don't understand how you guys don't have the one true king, Baby Bay, on anybody's team right now, because Baby Bay still puts up great numbers every
San Francisco players. Oh,
No.
I'm an idiot. Oh my god. Yo,
I didn't pick
Let's
any
go
Atlanta-
back in time.
I didn't pick any Rain players because they have one game and it's versus the Philadelphia Fusion, and I think that will be a steamroll.
I don't know. I think that Atlanta plays down enough to where they get decent points. So I have Baby Bay, the king, praise. I have Danye as my other DPS.
Stolen.
Yes, stolen. So who's better to put in on your team than Baby Bay? Who's somebody who's more high risk, high reward? I have Dogman as my first support.
Why is
Dogman
that high risk?
because he dies a lot. So in theory he could lose out on a lot of points just because he's dead for most of the match. But Dogman as my first support. Twilight's always a good solid option, so Twilight as my second support. I had Finzi in last week, so that's not stealing, but keeping Finzi in just because he seems to be really growing as far as like a solid point earner for Paris. At least as far as off tanks go, he's someone who's not. They're not switching him out for a Diva player, or excuse me, they're not switching him out for a Sama player at all. They're usually flipping him around in the lineup. So Finzi's a good pick, and then I just never feel great putting Fury in because Fury never puts up like amazing numbers. At least to me, I might have missed it and just seen it wrong, but Fury always puts up like okay, like solid numbers. I don't feel great with him going into this lineup with New York. I might take him out, to be honest. I know the one week I did take him out though was when he scored like a stupid amount of points.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't feel great putting Fury in, but I think with the way the off tanks are getting points right now, Fury isn't a bad option.
Honestly, if you can get 110 points out of a tank for a match, consider it a win.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you need out of them. 110 points. And if they play 2 games, if you can get 200 total points, consider it a victory.
Because they play Washington for the other one, so
Ooh.
that might be my worry there.
Yeah, because he'll probably get benched after the first map because they'll be steamrolling him.
We'll see.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah, no, shut up, Ramses. You steal. Totem, how about you? Who, my unlimited counterpart? Because I'm not trusting Steely McGee over here.
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
and
you and
me,
I,
Bob.
for the most part this season, had been playing similar lineups. I know last week there was probably more deviation than what it has been pretty much all season. So, like, I'll list off the people that I had listed as my alternates for, like, my other picks first, and then I'll go into my actual lineup. So, like, traditionally I kept, like, 2-2-2 for each alternate. So some of the alternates I were looking at were Gray for one of the supports, and Luffy, who put up some pretty good points this past week with Shanghai. For DPS players, I was looking at Decay and Yunjin. Yunjin actually outpoints Dean last week, but they were both really good earners. So Dragons last week were actually solid across the board.
I actually want to say something about Shanghai. Did I see today that they got Envy?
It's reported, yeah. It hasn't been made official as of yet. Now,
they actually have a Diva player?
I will say, like, that does lead me to believe that there's a good chance 222 might be coming in Stage 4. If they actually went out and did that. Because they have been relying on the Sombra, and now, of course, we've seen other teams kind of jump in the bandwagon there. But for my backup tanks, I had Finzi and Void. Now, going into my actual lineup, for my tank line, I have Fury and Janu. That's been basically, like, the two tanks I've been playing pretty consistently, basically all season. And I know you've been doing pretty much the same, at least having one of them every week. Mm-hmm. For DPS, I put Solomon Su, because he's been really good running the Zarya. And then, like, I'm undecided between Yunjin and Dane. I'm gonna probably go with Dane just because Shanghai is going to continue to lean on the Sombra play, and he's been one of the more aggressive Sombras. Plus, he also likes to stay in the fight with his translocator, so he's not, like, throwing it all the way in the back like we've kind of been seeing with, like, say, Bilby. So he's been a lot more active in earning more points as a Sombra compared to the other Sombra counterparts. For support, I went Bebe from the Spark, and Ryu Shehan, who again has been a top earner when he actually is playing, and Bebe's been doing really good numbers for the Spark. Then I did put Shaz as my captain, so we're pretty, like, split in regards to our lineups this weekend.
Now, I want to ask you guys, Kareev is one of those, he's an offensive player on High Noon. Mm-hmm. But he is 100% a support player. He's a flex support player. He has two matchups this week. Valiant versus Shanghai, which, in all honesty, should be a pretty decent matchup.
Right.
And against the Titans. Could Kareev really kind of be in there for the Unlimited? You think, like, as a flyer?
I feel like
you could, in theory, start 4 flex supports. And if you hit on all 4 of those flex supports, you're a god.
I feel like with a player like that, just due to the classification, you can't start him as a DPS, but he would have to be your captain pick.
Yeah.
In High Noon, he's listed as an offense player.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying, though. Like, I wouldn't start him as offense for one of those 2 slots. I would always put him in the captain role.
Okay, well, you would... Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what have his points been like the past 2 weeks? Because
last week he only did 143.
What did he do week 1? That's important because week 1 they got beat 3-1 by Shanghai.
Yeah, if you're gonna look at that with him
combined in week 1, 275.
Yeah, we don't know which one because they 4-0'd the Chengdu Hunters. We don't know which one.
His highest game was 184.93,
which is very good.
So his bad game was probably the Shanghai game.
Yeah, probably could have been.
And we're going to expect a similar performance with them against, or even a worse performance with them against Vancouver later this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's just one of those things where you just don't. You want to take advantage of those.
It is a really good advantage. I've had that in fantasy happen before, where someone comes in classified as a wide receiver, but they're actually a running back that only just goes to line some. Like, I forget who I had that was awesome one year, but they just have to keep it at that for the whole year, and then they switch the position correctly the next year. But
was it Dexter McCluster, or am I wrong?
It was, dude. That is totally it. Thank you. Thank you. You reminded me. Yeah. Then, I think throughout, the next season, they actually made him, he was a dual player, wide receiver and running back, classified as both.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the most obvious one is in baseball. You get those people classified as relief pitchers, that actually are starting pitchers. So you can start them in your relief pitcher slot, but you get the points of a starter.
Oh, okay.
Like that's the big one that jumped out to me, and those are the things that you really kind of want to take advantage of it and jump all over. So I don't know, it should be a good week, some good matchups this week, and then we'll get to pick'ems next.
Before we go to pick'ems, I just wanted a small question. Do we think Aim God comes back into the starting lineup, or is he on the trade block and never coming up?
There's no way to know, man. Like, they played Persia in Kellix's spot the week before, and then Aim God's spot this week. You have no idea.
I honestly feel like there's probably some behind the scenes stuff going on with Aim God. Like right now, I do not trust Boston.
Nope.
Yeah, why did they sit Kellix then? Like, why are they trying Persia out on these different roles?
Well, because they had Alamung in last week for Kellix.
Yeah.
So it was Alamung.
Kellix come back in though.
Yeah, the only ones I trust.
Well, he kind of split it, Bob. Alamon was in the first set, and then Kellix came back in the lineup with Persia in the second set.
Yeah, the only ones I trust are Color Hex and Blase, because they legit have no other DPS on the team.
Well, and RCK has even been a decent point ender so far, and then he's been subpar for the past couple weeks as well.
Yeah, I do want to note about Boston though, and this is something that did happen here in this prior week. They actually swapped Blase and Color Hex with the roles that they were playing. So we actually saw Color Hex switching over to Brigitte, and Blase was playing the Zarya rather than vice versa, and that did have an impact on how they performed as well.
Yes.
They just need to go Sombra Doomfist.
So Ramses finally got punished for the start for Boston Uprising players strat. Because
you're screwed now.
In a week where I was starting Aim God, RCK, Blase, and Color Hex, I got obliterated against Ednar.
They've been crap this entire stage.
Well, and even worse, I think I had three good flex supports with Izayaki, Aim God, and Kyo, and now only one of them is starting.
Right.
And
Feels
I traded
bad, man.
Neko away, so I've got nothing.
I have excess. We'll work out a trade.
Let's do it.
Alright, so with that being said, of course, we do have some pretty big marquee matches going on. We got some that have a lot more implications in regards to the current stage as well as the play-in tournament. So, Bob, what are the matches that we're looking at this week? Because there's a lot to kind of pick and choose from.
Well, do you want me to give all the matches first, and then people can talk about it, or one by one?
Let's do it one by one.
All right. So Thursday we have the Paris Eternal versus the Houston Outlaws. What do you think, Ramses? Is Houston for real?
I'm going to bring the cam back up and see if my frame rate dies again, just for this matchup. I want Houston to be for real so badly. And I think Paris is a team where I think it's either going to go to 5 maps, or they're going to roll them. I think for as much as we don't believe in Houston's capability right now, I have a similar amount of disbelief in Paris's capability as well. I don't expect
good though.
Yeah, but also
Danye came in, they actually looked like they could actually produce something on goats.
Well, that's the thing too. They've given us goats, and then they've given us the DPS looks. Their goats has looked great. Their DPS looks has not, but they haven't been running any Sombra, which we know is what Houston is going to do in this series.
Or Houston might DPS too. I think Houston definitely is on the streak, and could definitely do it. Did we lose Ramses?
I think so. Oh no, he's still talking.
I'm back. My video died. I swear, dude. Prime usage hours out here kill me. Well, the thing you're forgetting though, Bob, is yes, they were running the DPS, but one of those 3 DPS was also Sombra. They're gonna have Sombra in almost no matter what. They might they may be able to switch Dante to the Diva for a map, but I think if it depends how vulnerable Paris is to Sombra goats, or just to Sombra goats in general. Because I think if Dante can continue this level of play he's had so far, and if Raucus can stay alive, I think Houston wins.
Yeah, if they can keep on this hot streak. But on Friday we have the Los Angeles Gladiators versus the Shanghai Dragons. Totem, what do you think is the right choice here?
Ooh, man. See, this is an interesting one. I feel like the Gladiators have definitely been playing up, and I do feel like they are the stronger team in this current stage. Shanghai obviously has been looking fairly good. They've been the team that kind of were at the forefront of the Sombra play, and Dean has been one of the standouts outside of Dante. But like, the Gladiators have been doing some interesting things. We've seen Surefour back into the lineup, so they no longer have to rely on Hydration, who was probably one of the more noticeable Brig bots for not the best reasons, and I feel like that's kind of brought some swagger back to the Gladiators, so I'm expecting the Gladiators to take this. This is another one of those games that's probably going to come pretty close. My only concern with this one is if the Gladiators try to bunker up against Dane's Sombra, because that's definitely going to lead me to believe that the Dragons would be coming out on top, but I'm expecting this one to go probably 3-1 in favor of the Gladiators.
Yeah, I would have to tend to agree with you. But moving on to Saturday, we have the Atlanta Reign versus the Philadelphia Fusion. Ednar, who wins this game of the? I mean, this basically is Atlanta Reign is the Fusion of last season. So, who wins this game of this day or that day? I don't know how to even say it.
Can we just all agree that we all lose by watching this?
No, that was last week with Fusion in Boston.
Atlanta's at least fun to watch when they throw away grabs.
True. I mean, just throwing this out there, I'm gonna go Fusion on this one. I think they have a come to Jesus moment this week, almost, and realize that they're basically right now they're out of the season playoffs unless they do something drastic. Doesn't matter if we have a non-GOATS meta in stage 4. I think they realize they need to start taking advantage of playing some of the weaker opponents, which the Atlanta Reign kind of are, sort of are. Like, you don't know, they could be top tier, they could be trash tier. I think the Fusion kind of, step it up, and you could see the return of Fraggy. I know everyone's been saying it.
Nope. Until I see that man in a jersey on the stage actually playing, I don't believe it.
Yeah,
Sato's been having a rough time.
He has.
A real rough time.
And it is
He's
worth
had a rough
noting.
season, but
Yeah, it's worth noting Reign are coming into this on a 4-game losing streak this stage as well. Despite how well they have played some of the top teams, they are still losing to teams that are relatively close to them overall.
Yeah.
well, and that's the thing people forget about Atlanta.
I think it's going to be a good game, though. I mean, I think it's just going to be a good competitive game because they're just kind of both playing down. But if I had to put my money on it, I'd say Atlanta.
Same.
Like, I cannot place my hand on what the hell Atlanta is. Honestly, like, their support line, Masa and Dogman, pretty good support line. Erster's good DPS. Baby Bay, overrated. Good fantasy player, but overrated as an actual Zarya player.
Well, he has great mechanics. The problem is he's not a thinker. Like,
No.
I mean, I don't mean that he's dumb. I'm not trying to say that. He's just not like his vision on the field isn't as big as other people. He doesn't think about doing things like grabbing behind a wall to catch people on the other side of the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's always had fantastic mechanics.
Yeah,
so, like,
the alt economy from Atlanta lately has been very dicey.
Yeah, and like Dako is a very good diva. Popo
And pretty good Zarya.
pretty good. They should be higher up than they are. They just
Baby Bay failed when he tried to play Sombra this week too, so that hurt bad.
does Dogman, as much as everyone loves Dogman, does his attitude and the way his persona negatively affect the team?
I don't think
They're
it's
just
that.
like,
I don't
they're
think
just
so.
like, dude, shut up, we're losing. Sit down.
No, I
Instead
think
of trash talking the
you
other
make a
team.
good point there. You make a good point there.
Like, don't trash talk the other team when you're losing.
Because they might be tilted. I mean, I could see that. Like, that works definitely when you're winning, but
Yeah, like I
Okay,
mean,
good
if somebody
point.
in your
I'll give it
comp,
to you.
if somebody in your comp match was like trash talking the other team as you're losing, you're just like, shut the hell up. Like,
I already gave it to you. You make a great point.
I want to hear that again. Say that again.
So Ed, I think you're so Ed. I'm gonna cringe while I say this. I think you're right that he's the tilt center of this whole team. I think him and Dako are the two like key points for this Rain team because Baby Bay is like at least like Baby Bay is usually okay enough to where they'll be fine. I think it really just seems to be like when Dogman plays up and when Dako plays up,
Well,
they play really well.
It'll remain to be seen. Moving on to Sunday, the Chengdu Hunters go up against the Dallas Fuel.
So Bobby, I hate to ask you this.
Go ahead.
How much do you think Dallas loses by on Sunday?
I am so freaking scared, dude. I'm hoping that Jade and Arrow have been working on a strategy, but I don't have a lot of faith watching Note play Sombra this last weekend. So, yeah, I'm just, I don't know.
I just want to see some Protect the McCree from Dallas this week.
I want to see Dallas do something weird, and it's possible they put in other people. Who knows? Like,
well, and Chengdu is the team to do it against, right? Like, if you're going to play against Vancouver, like, there's no reason. Like, you could try and run a Protect the McCree comp, but you're just prolonging your inevitable like squash. I think running DPS against Chengdu would be a better option. I think you have two different people you could run a Protect the McCree with AKM or Taimu. You could run just something that's some sort of different strat against Chengdu because at this point their goats has too many weak spots.
Okay, I gotta chime in about this Taimu crap.
Oh, it's not gonna happen. It's not happening.
Dude.
You were barely playable in season 1.
Oh, did you not watch stage 4? Like, what you don't realize about Taimu, the way he's always been, it's streaky. But all we're saying is if Taimu's on and they put him in, McCree, he's gonna pop off. Like, but he's got to be on. I mean, that's the problem with him. So, do you knock the dust off him on a map or two, maybe?
Yeah, but to have Taimu right now is a negative factor on the team. He is.
I don't think so. I mean, he shows
if
up.
You have somebody on the bench bitching about not being able to even scrim.
He didn't bitch. He just said that like he wasn't happy with not playing and he wants to play. But he didn't really bitch, and he's there.
You know what sucks the most?
Not every player's there at the arena, but whenever I watch those Dallas Fuel things, they're in the dugout, and Taimu is always there supporting him. So no, I don't buy that for a second.
And here's the thing: if you agree with Taimu, then you disagree with Arrow and Jane.
I mean, Arrow hasn't given us a lot to feel good about recently.
I'm just saying I understand that Taimu.
I understand he's upset and he wants frustration, but as a bench player,
I don't agree that he's toxic for them in the backlines. Like, he's there helping them, cheering them on, helping Arrow spot out things like.
And realistically, the upgrade would not be a skill upgrade. The only thing we were like are. Realistically, I said about him playing Protect McCree, the only thing I would feel good about having him in was subbing him in for Zach. Because at this point, we know that Taimu at least has like the game knowledge and the game sense. Like, that would be an improvement to bring forward into the team.
I just think their goats is pretty good. Subtract Zach. So I just feel like you put in Mickey. Like, he made Brig famous last year, so
it's like Zach, we get it. You don't want to play Brig anymore. Like, I understand. You don't have to play anything anymore, Zach. Yeah, like, you don't have to play anything anymore, dude. All good.
So yeah, that's what I would do. But yeah, I do.
No, I agree that
I do worry about this game, and like
I agree, Zach. I agree, Zach is not the best at Baguette. I agree wholeheartedly, but you can't have somebody who's not playing, even if Zach is playing. If your backup is inadvertently or indirectly
Are you
crashing your
Are
starter.
you back on Taibu?
Yes.
Oh my god, dude. We already
If
moved
you
on
had-
from that.
if
We're
you
talking
had
about Mickey now.
If you had a backup on a football team who was trash talking the starter, indirectly trashing them,
I will
What
say
would you
it.
do
You
to that
already
person?
made your point. You know what I mean? Like,
I just
you can't just keep saying stuff.
I'm gonna
and
drive
agree.
home the fact that Taimu needs to shut up.
Oh, okay. So
But what about
let's.
Mickey though?
Totem,
I'm fine
save
with
us.
Mickey.
Well, I
Totem,
just
save
want to
us.
get Ed's quick take on this really quick. So next week, let's say in this week, Dallas refuses to play Trill after OGE has basically gone on record saying that he's burnt out and he likes Trill, like he wants him to come into play. Does that mean next week you're suddenly going to be backlashing against the Dallas Fuels coaching staff because they're not, actually listening to their players?
Well, I mean, if a player says "take me out," and the coaching staff doesn't, like, that's a little bit different than a backup player complaining about.
It depends on. I mean, it depends on a lot of stuff. It depends on what the team doctor, like psychologist, says about their mental state and their type of personality. Will them be taking a break, actually improve the situation, or like being pushed to try and stick it out? Would that be better for their mental? And only a psychologist could give that answer. You know?
Yeah, but like when your starting tank publicly says, "I could use some time off,"
Yeah, I was just
you
making
have
the point.
to. You have to listen.
We don't
to
know
that.
if that's a cry out for like, tell me I'm doing good. You know, like there's all kinds of different things that could
But it
go
would
into.
be different if he just came out and said that on his own, but he was actually replying to someone
Right.
and said, "This is a good idea."
But I mean, they saw that they had to have,
Oh yeah, they had to have.
since they monitored
just-
the social media.
You saw it with Effect last year, even.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting
Well,
for Bob to scream Effect.
So one way or another,
Just see
like
it.
if we're expecting some changes from Dallas, it would hopefully be this week.
I agree with that. If they're gonna make any changes, I think this week would be the week.
It's just dangerous for them.
I don't dislike the bringing in Mickey. It's a matter of we don't know how much Mickey's been actually playing with the team.
Yeah.
And that's cause if Mickey hasn't been playing with the team or practicing with them, then
Well,
that's a whole different issue.
I don't know. I've seen him on those Dallas Fuel things. He's there sitting at the computers with them.
But
I think a lot of
you
them
don't know
scrim
it
at
in
different
those.
things,
Yeah, you don't know in those instances because I remember
like who they're playing with. Yeah.
Well, IDD KD would said he'd be in the room every time, but he'd just be playing ladder,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone else would be screaming, and he's just sitting there waiting for the coach. Put me in, coach. Type of shenanigans. So I don't know. I think Dallas needs to do some sort of.
So who
Not
wins? Nobody
just-
answered.
I think the Chengdu Hunters win.
What do you, Ramses?
Yep, I think Chengdu wins.
Totem?
Unless we see some sort of different strategy.
Yeah, I'd say I'll give Dallas a map. It'll be 3-1 for Chengdu.
Bob,
I think Chengdu 60-40.
did you dial it all on the inside?
Yeah, it's a bummer.
I mean, it's just one of those things, Dallas doing bad basically comes with Houston doing good. You can't have both Texas teams doing good at the same time.
Thank you for making this sacrifice for me, Bob. I appreciate it.
It's the same thing Mel said.
Oof.
Hurts.
Yep. That it does. But with that being said, guys, we are going to close the show out for tonight. Of course, we have a number of ways how you guys can keep in touch with us, as well as find additional content. But if you guys want to help us out, one of the best things you guys can do is, of course, leave us a review. So, Ed, where can they go and throw those at for us?
All right, our reviews, you can show some support to the show by giving us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice. So any feedback or constructive criticism is always welcome. It will offer us insight into how we can make our better listening experience for all of you.
Absolutely.
So go leave us reviews.
Yeah, I know
Trench
it's been a while since we've gotten one for this particular show, but that happens from time to time. Of course, we do have a way where you can find additional Overwatch-related content, whether it's general Overwatch, esports, Path to Pro, all of that good stuff. So, Bob, why don't you tell everyone about Overwatch Recall?
Yeah, it's a weekly listing of all shows involving Overwatch or Overwatch competitive. You can find it at owlnshow.com/OW Recall. Episodic listings every Sunday night. Come on down.
Absolutely, and of course, if you want to find that weekly listen, it's both in our Discord and posted on Twitter at OW Recall. And I do want to say, we do know that there is one of the bigger general Overwatch podcasts that is winding down here pretty soon. I know, Bob, you're going to be on their final show here pretty soon, and that will be Watchpoint Radio. So be sure when they record their final episode to go show them some love, because they have been one of the pillars of the Overwatch podcast community, dating back to 2016. So with that being said, of course, if you guys want to get a hold of us, you can do so a number of different ways. So Ramses, how can our listeners get a hold of our show?
Well, there's a couple of different methods you can go with. You can hit us on our email at contact@owlnshow.com, our Twitter, of course, at owlbythenumbers, and just our website at owlnshow.com. We also have another couple links for our content, or just where you can even further communicate with us. You can find our content on youtube.com/c/Overwatch League Network. And of course, we stream a bunch of times during the week. Monday nights for Overwatch League Network at 7 p.m. Pacific time. This show, Owl by the Numbers, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Heroes Never Die, which is our variety show where Ed and Totem talk about Overwatch for 3.5 hours every week. Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And occasionally we do host streams here and there. Not very much because there's been games going on, but we have host streams occasionally on Mondays at 5 Pacific time or Fridays at 7:30 Pacific time. And that's all on twitch.tv/owlnshow. And it's a very similar link for our Discord where you can hang out with us. You can get in on our game nights where Ed mysteriously doesn't show up and doesn't come and back up any of the back talk he was supposed to bring that entire week because he's at his sister's or something. Woo. And then
I was celebrating Father's Day.
I'm just saying, Ed, how many solo games did you win during the game night? 0. How many?
I heard that Trill and Earthrail and Spider beat up on the 6 of you 2v6.
I won one free-for-all game. That's all that matters, Ed. I win.
No, okay, well, you heard wrong. They won one game against us. We won all the other games.
2v6. They should not even come close
I think at that point it was 2v5.
It was 2v5, and we were playing on Hollywood, which was the best Widow map.
That is not even remotely...
It was 2v5. Bob was on one tank, Totem was on one healer, and then it was the other 3 of us were playing DPS.
Yeah, and they had high ground, and we weren't running any dive at all.
Listen
so every
here,
game that I played Monkey, I got quad gold medals. I got the 4 gold medals title because I was playing Monkey and just pouncing on Thrill as soon as he came up, and then Spider after, and it was hilarious.
Right,
yeah.
You guys are giving excuses on why you lost.
Well, no,
we didn't lose.
More times than not, we won.
Yeah, we won 6 and lost 1.
So
but if we would have all played DPS, I think they would have had a big chance because there would have been a lot bigger pool to shoot.
I mean, we ran goats on them 6v2, and we pretty much won every time. So
you had to run goats to beat a Tuesday.
No, this was the second game after we already beat them. And if any of this sounds fun and you want to hang out, join us on our Discord.me/owlnshow.
Right, and of course, if you guys want to show us some additional support, you can do so by throwing your Twitch subprimes at us. Our Twitch Prime subs, because, you can do that, and it doesn't cost you anything. And of course, we do have our Patreon page at patreon.com/OWL Network. Guys, we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. So you too can join the likes of our Master and Above patrons, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Josabal, and Owl in helping our network grow. So I appreciate all the support that everyone throws our way, and we will have some news soon for merch. So I'm looking forward to that. As soon as we get all of that stuff in, you guys will know all about it. Probably
When
within...
are the Owl End Show booty shorts coming in?
Never.
Oh, dang. All right.
So with that being said, if you
Shut up, Ramses.
want to reach our hosts, you can do so as well over on Twitter. You can find myself at Totally Blaze and Bob, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB.
All right, Ed, how about you?
First, if quizzes are quizzical, what are tests?
Nope, we're not falling for it.
I know Ramses is probably thinking testicles.
Well, you can't see him, so you don't know if he is thinking.
But you can follow me on Twitter, and that's
I'm thinking it.
Took you a while. Way to join the group. At Edanar Overwatch. That's EDANAR Overwatch. Who's up next? Bob, where can they find
we already did that. We did that.
All right.
It's me!
Ramses, where can we find you? Nobody really cares.
You can find me at Ramses_OW, where you can join in on the Houston celebration train for just the last little bit we could get out of it before we somehow throw it all away versus Paris this week.
2-10. Woo!
Woo! Bro, I'll take it.
You're the Cleveland Browns.
Hey, Ed, did any one of your 5 teams beat the Shock yet?
Actually, yeah. Hanser Spark beat them week 1.
Good point. Never mind.
Got
I
him.
have just been freaking missing every arrow I've shot this week.
Maybe you should think about these comebacks at me before you step to me.
So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you again for hanging out with us tonight on another episode of OWL by the Numbers. This has been episode number 20. I've been your host, Totally Drunk, joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Edanar, Blaze and Bob, and Ramses, and we hope to see you guys back tomorrow night for our next episode of Here's Never Die, when we're going to talk a lot about lore and the new short story. So we'll see you guys then. Take care, and have a good night.
Good night.
Sweetheart, well, it's time to go. Sorry.
Ba-doom.